Welcome to everyone out there who's joining us for this webinar event. I know that we have many people from different parts of the world joining us. So I should say good morning, good afternoon and good evening, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. But it's lovely to have you with us. My name's Graham Mackenzie. I'm the Artistic Director of Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, HCMF. And welcome to Unbound Listening 2, which is the second in a series of events that we are hosting with British Council. And Unbound Listening is a series of events which focuses on global challenges currently facing the world, but also the impact that those challenges have on artistic communities and cultural organisations. And we're particularly looking at artistic responses, local artistic responses to these global challenges. So the emphasis is very much on sharing experiences, collective thinking, and how we can work together collaboratively going forward across borders to support each other and create new opportunities. But the session's all about listening and learning. Really this Unbound Listening events are about conversation. So we have a fantastic panel from all over the world to talk about some of the issues. But please feel free to ask questions throughout the event. Use the Q&A function and the questions will be picked up by the panel. So I'm going to introduce our fantastic chair facilitator for the event, Anatai Nitipon, who is a composer based in Thailand, former vice president of the Princess Galiana Institute of Music in Thailand, where she still is inputting as a lecturer as well. And I'm really pleased and honoured to have Anatai here as a chair for the event. And I'm going to let Anatai introduce the rest of the panel. I'm going to disappear from your screen and listen attentively. So enjoy. The event will run for about 60 minutes. And then those who are signed up for the networking session will have a link to take you into that. And those who are joining for the webinar at 11:30 can go straight to the performances that are available as part of Unbound Listening. One by Leafcutter John, which takes a commission between HCMF and Leeds Art Gallery as a starting point for 5 improvisations, and a collage of some wonderful moments from Chernobyl-Dorf, an archaeological opera fragments, which Ilya, who you'll be introduced to in a minute, is the co-composer. So yes, enjoy those performances. The performances and this discussion remain on our website until April 30th. But enjoy the next 60 minutes or so. And thank you to all the panelists for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Mackenzie. So again, I would like to say Sawadee Kha. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from every part of the world. Again, my name is Anatai and I'm calling in from Bangkok. So first, thanks to the support of the British Council and the Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival for making this possible. This is the second chapter from an online series, Unbound Listening, where stories from across the world of new music, its challenges of the global issues will be reflected and shared from the perspective of our artists to our audiences here. We are hoping that this could be the opportunity, as Director Katie Graham said at the beginning of this event, is a chance to share, explore, challenge, and tackle challenge together. So for today, we have 3 of our honor guests with us. So if I can first introduce our first guest, Akhu Chingangbam, who I've just learned that he is actually has has a PhD in physics, and as academics teaching physics in university. He's also a songwriter and folk musician And he formed the band Imphal Talkies and the Howlers, and he was inspired by Peter Seegers and created Where Have All the Flowers Gone Festival, which focused on the change people can make in the face of power and attempt to bring people, rural and urban communities under one platform. So we'll hear more from him a bit later on. And our second guest, Halim Ardi. I heard that he's also a wonderful musician and into all this playing bass guitar, and then later on turned into a DJing, and now who is, besides being an invigorating live force at night, as he said, I really like this, mix colors genres seamlessly, moving from bright, chiming house tune into the darker side of techno and down tempo. He'll be here to share with us about the Rainforest Pavilion, an organization that that provoke awareness of the environmental issues through art installations and DJ sets, and that can incorporate all these forest sound to help awareness about the important issues like climate change. And our third guest, who will be showcasing of his work after these sessions, is Ilya Rasumeko, who's also graduated from the University of Performing Arts, Music and Performing Arts, Vienna in composition. And he's now based in Ukraine, and he has co-wrote the opera Chernobydov and creating all this archaeological opera. It's the first time I heard this word, and it's really amazing. So you have to stay tuned for this. He will be presenting his work that is inspired by the impact of nuclear power on our world, how political transformation of the world has undergone post-disaster, and reflecting on the man-made nature of the climate catastrophe. So without further ado, if I can fire you with the first questions here. So what are the stories you would like your audience to hear from your music or your projects? And possibly what was your approach or narratives that make your projects uniquely yours? So anyone, please start from any part of the world. Go ahead. Akhu?
Yeah, can you please repeat it
Please.
again? I kind of missed out.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, my questions would be like, what are the stories you would like your audience to hear from your project?
Yeah.
And possibly like what kind of your approach that you think is uniquely
Yeah.
to your project? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, and I work with a band called Imphal Talkies, which was formed in 2008. And I also organized this festival, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? We started the festival in 2014, the year the American folk singer Pete Seeger died. So for me, I belong to a place called Manipur. It lies in the Indo-Myanmar border. It's like 1 hour drive. Burma is 1 hour drive from my hometown. So we grew up in this place called Manipur. It's a conflict zone, highly militarized. Everywhere you look at, you'll find Indian Army, patrolling with their, arms, more sophisticated guns and all. So we grew up amidst that conflict. We would, protest against the army, the disappearances of, many innocent peoples. So for me, when I talk about music or any project that I do, it's always about addressing certain issues, especially militarization, especially how and with the militarization, there are certain things that come to happen in my town. So first, the thing is like you militarize a certain place, and then they bring in the corporate big worlds, big corporate company, and they'll take away your resources. First they make it a conflict zone, and then these corporate people will come down and then take away all your resources. So musically and through my festival, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, we try to do this. This is a festival where we work very closely with the community, and if you look at the history of my town, which is Manipur, the mothers, the women's, they're always at the forefront, fighting against all sorts of issues. It's always the mother, for past 1 century. So even in our festival also, we work very closely with these mothers, and they are often the volunteers. They will decide what we should do. I mean locally they know the place. I'm from this place called Imphal, and the festival we do, it's like in the outskirts, like sub uh, you know 20-30 kilometers away. So and these communities, they have their own understanding of environment. They have their they very, very organic, this ecological system, how they relate with the forest, even they don't have to buy, medicines from the pharmacies or big companies, because all these medicinal herbs and all, they know how to treat. So with our festival, we try to promote that, and then we bring down people from across the country, India, and we try to connect, this, the city dwellers. We want them to feel, the life, among the community just next to the forest that they have been preserving for centuries. So these are one of the thing, and through the festival and through my music, I mean, we have been able to address many issues. Like, for example, there's an egg called Armed Forces Special Powers Egg. It's a very draconian egg imposed by the Indian government in place like Kashmir in the Northeast India, like in my hometown. So we have been able to talk, musically through various artists about this draconian egg and how it has killed so many innocent lives. Yeah, I think for now, I think this is enough for me. I can talk further later.
I know that your festival is included music, dance, origami, writing songs, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what was your purpose of putting? Why do so many things in one festival? Why not
Okay.
just music?
Yeah. So as I said, in Manipur, in my town, so there's no place for artists to hang out or to do something together. At 6 p.m. in the evening, the entire town is shut. Okay, that's how militarized it is. So I mean, we grew up and we never had the chance to do anything that we want. So I had been lucky, that I get to go to New Delhi and study my higher studies. So when I reached Delhi, I was quite shocked, oh, this is how people, live their life, so much of fun, you can go to bar and pub and play music. So with our festival, we try to create a platform for all kinds of artists. And we pick the artists who socially very conscious about the various issues that surrounds us and which borders us, our childhood memories, which are very traumatized. So we bring in artists like filmmakers, activists also, we bring in a bicycle. We started every year, we started the festival with a bicycle rally from the city till the place, and then we carry various billboard, banners and posters, whatever that we want to express through the festival. And we have art exhibition, and we have like hundreds of school children attending the festival. We have this painting competition every year for the students. So yeah, so that's the aim, bring in people from all walks of life, from different communities, sharing one platform, 3 days of festival, together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I saw that you mentioned about all these conflicts, and you want to bring all this naivety,
Yeah.
learning about innocence from how children are working together, and maybe bridge all these conflicts together. That's really wonderful and beautiful concepts. Thank you. And maybe if I can go next to Halim. I know that you have brought in so many people, not only musicians, but also scientists and economists and different kind of people. I mean, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Really, it's an honor to be included in a panel such as this. So I'm based in Bali, Indonesia, and I grew up here in Indonesia. And so I was always been influenced by the beauty of the nature and the beauty of the culture and the kind of music that kind of comes from it. And my project is called Rainforest Pavilion, and it started as a way for us to use our influence as DJs, because I consider myself more of a DJ than any kind of musician at all. And we're actually quite trendy in the sense of that a DJ has quite a lot of influence on a dance floor and in a club. They're almost given rock star status nowadays. And me and my partner who set up this Rainforest Pavilion, we both kind of came to the point of the superficialness of our DJ world and the whole entire club lifestyle. You know, even though I love it and it's my passion, my profession, there's still a great superficial side to it. So we were trying to figure out how can we use this influence of the rock starness of a DJ to do good. And this is kind of where the concept came, because we would go to a nightclub, rock a dance floor, and really the thing that we noticed that the people who went to the nightclubs, the only thing that they left with was a hangover, right? There was nothing beyond that they took away. And even though a nightclub is actually a very influential place, we have the visuals, you have amazing music, and you have people who are kind of in a different mindset, then you can actually leave a very strong impression with them. So this is where we developed the concept to include scientists, activists, and people who are doing good for the environment, to give them the same rock star status as a DJ would receive, because we definitely realize that the scientists who are actually doing something for the environment deserve this kind of status, but they're never actually given it. So that's where the Rainforest Pavilion really came about from. And it's continuing to grow and grow until we got to the point where we got invited to Wonderfruit in Thailand. And this is how we made our journey to Thailand. Wonderfruit is actually an amazing festival, which is, I think, leading the way in Southeast Asia for creating a festival that has as less of impact on the environment as possible. So this is kind of where we came with, really we developed ourselves and made our audience, is that we continued to go to Wonderfruit, make a stage there that incorporated visuals that were from the NASA satellites showing the degradation of the rainforest, put into club trippy visuals to kind of give people a subliminal messaging about, while they're having fun, that they can learn something as well. And our biggest takeaway from the Rainforest Pavilion is that we always donate from our profits. From a portion of bar sales always goes to saving a rainforest or any environmental cause that is prevalent at that time. So we've, of course, deal with like plastic in the oceans. That's a big problem here in Bali. So we always trying to raise awareness and raise funds, but not without trying to change people's habits, because most people will go to a bar and buy a drink. And so we just tell them, if you want, for every drink that you buy, you're actually saving the rainforest. And this creates a message of positivity, which is one of our backbones as well, is that we are activists, but we do it through positivity. We're not trying to shame anyone. We're not trying to shame the companies that are destroying the rainforest. We're not trying to shame anyone who's not doing environmental stuff, but we want to create a love for the environment through music and good times.
That's amazing. I remember I saw on. Yeah, that's amazing. I remember from one of your interview that you said something that at the end of this party, you're hoping that people will get something that you can take home at the end of the night. I think it's really it's answered a lot of my questions about how do you match these two things together, and thank you also for already getting into the second questions about how you can make impact to people. So really about changing, not to shame everyone. And I love the way that you said that you also give the spot of a rock star to other people who has matters to say, like scientists and all these people that they're keen to make changes, but they have no place to say all these things. So that's very generous of you. Thank you. And so the next one, if we can go to Ilya, can you share with us how did you kind of cross from doing all this contemporary music into the ideas of promoting awareness about nuclear?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ilya Razumeyko. I'm composer based in Kyiv in Ukraine now, but today I representing a big team of artists and researchers from Ukraine and from Austria, and special my co-author, composer Roman Grigoriev. And I will speak a little bit about our project with the name Archaeological Opera Chernobyl-Dorf. So this is very interesting topic. I will share now my screen. And something, can you see now the presentation?
Yes, we can.
So we started to working on this project like 1 year ago, and something very interesting that I realized with the reality of our discussion is our Ukrainian connection to, let's say, Indonesia and Bali. So I want to start with Chernobyl landscape. Actually, what we have in Chernobyl is a forest. And this is maybe very good. So another, in the case of Chernobyl, we can speak of reforestation of a huge area. So if our problem with rainforest is deforestation, and then so Chernobyl is maybe, and Chernobyl exclusion zone is a great monument that how quick the nature can recover and go back, and how the nature and our earth can live without us, and even how beautiful is it, because all area around Chernobyl, it's a forest and small lakes, and all this nature is now overtaking all this huge Soviet structure and reactors and the city of Pripyat and so on and so on. So it's, I think, very good connection between our two. At the first view, I think what is common between I don't know, Bali and Ukraine, and now so the answer was the nature of our landscapes, even with all difference in between. So, and back to our project, in our case, speciality of our project is that Chernobyl is something that happened already 35 years ago. And it's already a big narrative in culture about Chernobyl. So it's a lot of books, a lot of theater plays. It's books of Svetlana Alexievich, which won a Nobel Prize. It's a famous HBO series about Chernobyl. So if we start to think about this project and to do it, our question was not that we must speak about Chernobyl because it's something like a mainstream topic, but how we will do it. So what will be our reflection on Chernobyl after 35 years, and how what can be interesting, and how we can construct our artistic and our research work to open something new, or to discuss maybe something new. And our starting point for this project was situated even not in Chernobyl and not in Ukraine, but in Austria. So I discovered for myself for 5 years some very special place on the Danube River. It's Zwentendorf nuclear power station. It was built in the late 70s, but it was never opened because of the protest. So it was a huge protest of the Green Party in Vienna, and then after national referendum, this nuclear power plant was never opened. So it was complete. It was a huge investment, about 20 million euros maybe, and they already installed Siemens reactor in this concrete structure, but it wasn't opened, and it stayed like in this idyllical Austrian landscape, like a technical museum. So, and we take this point as maybe some thesis and antithesis together with Chernobyl. So in Chernobyl, we have our dystopian story, and in Zwentendorf, we have this, let's say, utopia. I think it's happened very rarely that such a huge investment and such a huge corporation and business lose a play against activists. So, and this is, let's say, positive case. And so in our imagination, we combine somehow these two toponyms, Chernobyl and Zwentendorf, and created this imaginary Chernobyl-Dorf. And this toponym was our starting point. It was something like a post-apocalyptic settlement. So our goal was to imagine what the people will do in art and in culture maybe in 500 years. So we're trying to imagine some place in between, not in Ukraine, not in Austria, maybe somewhere in Central Europe. And this was our starting point. So it's a small post-apocalyptic settlement of the people who find somewhere ruins of nuclear power station and trying to survive there and to make art and culture there. So And then we also starting to imagine different aspects of this Chernobyl-Dorf world, and we developed method, we call it video archaeological expedition. So we made one expedition to Chernobyl. This is, for example, a cooling tower of the 6th block, and we play also some performance with also with folk song from Chernobyl origin. It's also important to mention that before the catastrophe, all this forest area around Chernobyl was one of the most research place for Ukrainian ethnomusicologists, and it's also together with dying of this Chernobyl area, a very the whole generation of very interesting folk music also disappeared, and we also make our research inside this polyphonic singing, inside these stories and all what we can find, and all materials that were preserved even in 80s by Ukrainian ethnomusicologists. And also we extend our Chernobyl expedition to another areas, for example, to South Ukraine and to the central Ukraine, where we find these cosmic landscapes of the quarries, for example. It's Kryvyi Rih city which is surrounding with, I don't know, maybe 200 kilometers line of quarries and productions and all this, I don't know, Martian artificial landscape. And we also connect this area somehow with Chernobyl. Because Chernobyl is not the only certain concrete place in Ukraine. So for us in this project, it's maybe a metaphor and image. You can find Chernobyl everywhere. Also, it's a so. And this is also interesting place. So we also make some shooting in South Ukraine near Dnieper River in front of the biggest still operating nuclear power station in Europe, in the city of Energodar. And so we make this, so we trying to connect in our work different places, different times, and then create this kind of artificial story. And also together with this process, we created two fictional, let's call it art institution. One of them was an anthropological museum of Chernobyl-Dorf, where we collect some small objects that can be related to this world. For example, like this. We call it urtext. This is, for example, microchips that we buy at flow market, I don't know, with $1, and then we try to make art piece, and even we try to make music and to use this material as a score, for example, for musician. Or, for example, this part of museum has a name objects, and we try to reconstruct the costumes of these Chernobyl-Dorf people, which also, I don't know, collect some. This is keys from the grand piano, for example, and this is also microchips and cables and all this trash. So yeah, and also in this case, our production was very ecological because of a lot of costumes, requisite we buy on flea markets or make out of trash and so on and so on. So, and also together with this museum, we open Institute of Chernobyl-Dorf culture. So some artificial institution which must research into the post-apocalyptic. But it's also funny that some people calling us and asking how to get job or how to make a PhD in our institute. But yeah, maybe in the future, if you get a budget, it will be also possible to make a PhD in post-apocalyptic studies. Who knows? Yeah. And all this, made it ended up in this stage. So it's a Kiev Arsenale where we make a final performance. It was a huge, around 3 hours opera, also with a lot of special instruments or objects. Like, for example, this is original Lenin head. Also, it has some connection because for example, Chernobyl nuclear power station has a name of Lenin, like a lot of huge communistic object. And this is also original Lenin, which is 70 years old. And we also find him during our expedition in a small village in South Ukraine, in some small village theater also. And he also was in this stage, so waiting for us maybe. And I don't know, maybe this is also interesting. This is our drum set. Also made with trash and with small metal elements that we find somewhere in the streets and constructed by our artist Evgen Bal. So and so on and so on. So maybe it's too much. It's just short look inside this Chernobyl-Dorf war.
That's amazing. I think not only someone who might want to call for a job, I'm also confused about what are these two places and how it's related. So thank you for you all. So for the first round, I think it's wonderful to hear how you share about the sounds. Ilya, you mentioned about the sounds of all this folk music and all these sounds that made by all these archaeological objects that you found, and which is not long ago, and how did it make sounds. And Halim, you put in some sounds of natures, mixing with all this kind of thing, and putting in a new installation site. And Agnew, you present all these stories, the sounds of people, the sounds of conflict, and so this is wonderful that you're coming from kind of like three completely different perspectives, but you meet, as Ilya mentioned earlier, in the forest. And I'd like what Akhu mentioned earlier, that it's always the mother in Manipur that kind of like make all this kind of thing. And somehow the mother nature finds her own ways to recover, even in Chernobyl, all this kind of thing. After 35 years, all these livestock is starting to get into those places. And maybe the music, as in nature, always find its way to heal people and always find its way to communicate goodwills of people as well. So it comes to my second part of the questions. Like one thing, you have one thing, let's say almost like the utopian side, which is the nature, that is the utopian side. And sadly, the dystopian side is a little bit of human responsibility. Always in your cases, you share one thing, that human is really a center of all this catastrophe in some way. And how did you find from your projects that can change and unbound human from this tendency?
In my case, when every time I talk about environment, it always includes the people. I mean, like the native people. So the place where we do our festival, they have been preserving this forest for last 75 years, and it's they really understand the forest. It's always the outsider, who comes in, and like I said, how the corporates come down, and then they will do deforestation, occupy the land, who occupy the land of these native people who actually have been be part of the environment, this green environment. And I think we really need to I mean, from my point of view, we really need to be aware of what kind of people we bring in our places, and we really need to be careful of that. For example, in my town, everything is like very much related. It comes first, it comes with the militarization, and then they bring in companies, they take away the land and take away everything slowly, gradually. So we have to fight the system. I strongly believe, through music, through our projects, and that's what we've been doing with the festival and with my music. That's what we keep consistently, been doing for past many years. And I don't have a solution, like we have to do this or we don't have to do that. But for us, we need to understand, and people often see these people who really live with the forest, they have been, seen as like some, barbaric kind of a thing, which is a totally, bullshit, you know. So we really need to understand, about life, about the organic nature of our environment from these people. So we go often to these people and listen to their folklores, their mythology, like even the medicinal herb. So even when we were growing up, we used to, you know every time you have fever, we have a leaf called no manka. We just boil it and drink the this soup, then it goes away. But now in the city, no one grows that plant anymore, and then it's going away from our memories. It's fading out. So so it's for me, since we started the festival, we've been working very closely, and I myself have been documenting all this kind of medicinal herbs, and documenting the folklores, which carry so much of our past, my tradition, which I didn't know at all. So slowly, we're trying to do that, and be myself being from the city, being very aware of what kind of negative impact I can bring to the village. So with our festival, it's a festival where we have like 15,000 people, the footfall. So we are very, very careful what kind of thing we bring into the village, because we strictly avoid plastic. We strictly what do you call, all this disposable stuff. So we don't allow anything. So we are very careful about the waste management there. We have a separate team working on that. So it's a process, but we have to be very aware, because they say it's a global village now. Anyone can come down and do the damage to the environment and ecology. So we're working on that. It's a process, I think.
It's a process. It's amazing that it's not about educating the audience, but somehow in your festival, your audience already educated, and they are actually the one who can teach us.
Yeah.
And somehow the let's say almost like an outsider, people who go and attend your event is just be there to be reminded of what that has forgotten, and it's amazing. And thank you also for bringing up also the maybe the very important awareness that all these festival organizer has to be reminded is all these waste that we create during the time that we create our events as well. So that's and you're really starting from yourself, creating all these events, and then the message can be carried across to your audience. So Halim, can you share anything with us on this matter as well? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I've just been captivated by hearing Ilya and Akhu speak. It's funny how closely our projects do fall in line with at the core ethos. As Ilya was saying, that like how old cultures were found in the forest, and how actually medicines are, as Akhu was saying, that the medicinal purpose of the rainforest or any kind of forest is actually super important. This is one thing that that isn't said enough, is about how much of our medicine is now actually discovered in the rainforest or forest or in nature. Antibiotics and the new cure to diseases and everything, and especially right now, living in the middle of a global pandemic, nature is more important than anything, because this is where we are going to heal ourselves. Because as we were just saying, Mother Nature is the one that will heal us. To kind of get back on point, I see that the preservation of indigenous cultures is quite important through modern means. As we see here, making festivals or creating digital art, and to give old culture a new form of life. And that's something that I really try to put into my DJ sets and in our art installations, is that we take some of the beautiful moments of culture and try not to bastardize it with modernization, but try to give it a new life and kind of culture 2.0. And so that's one of my key aspects, is that we like to incorporate not just rainforest noises, but also the music of the Dayak community in Borneo. They have the amazing sape instrument. And I recently got to perform with a lady who played the sape. And it was the first time she played with a DJ, and the first time I played with a sape artist. And it was really quite a magical moment of where two cultures collide. And then it goes back into, we can help preserve these cultures by making it cool again. And I think this is what everybody on this panel is kind of doing in some sort of way, is that we're giving new life to ancient culture so that it actually can evolve and not be lost and be made cool again. Let me just finish on that one point, because living here in Bali, a lot, like, the culture is so strong here. The Hinduism, Bali Hinduism is super strong here, and it's ingrained in people since birth to follow these traditions. What I can see with the young Balinese is that they follow it because it's tradition. They don't follow it because of me as an outsider to Balinese Hinduism. I see it's for its beauty, and I want to follow it for the beauty. But a lot of the young, it's just a tradition. So I think one of our main goals is to preserve culture through making it cool, you know?
I really love how you label it, culture 2.0. That's an amazing term. So in the same way, to keep the traditions, but looking at it from the beautiful side of it. And yeah, so is there anything that you can take from this part, Ilya, about the culture 2.0? I think you are definitely doing that in some way. Yes, please.
So we're doing it, but in Chernobyl, we have some special case that really the living tradition is lost. Because so it was some very special origin with the name Polisia, also connected with this forest as a culture. So it's a some maybe special ethnos living on the border between Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. So, and all this huge area in Ukraine and in Belarus, which became now an exclusion zone. So the all people, so it's around 200,000 people maybe. They were unsettled to very different cities and places of Soviet Union. So, and we still have some old women who can sing this song or who can be like who can represent this tradition, but they are living all in different places. And really, I think in maybe after 10 years, we will have nobody who is really represents the living tradition of this Chernobyl singing tradition or Chernobyl storytelling tradition. But anyway, we have a relatively huge library because, how I say, the ethnomusicology, especially from Kiev Academy of Music, and Kiev is relatively close to Chernobyl, it's just 150 kilometers. So they make a beautiful collection of this material even before the catastrophe and after catastrophe. Even it was an institute who for Chernobyl culture, and the goal of this institute is to preserve all this oral tradition and singing tradition. And yes, and our goal as an artist will be so what we will do with these materials, how we will, how you say, Halim, to give the second life, or maybe digital immortality is also a topic now, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, maybe the second question would be, how do you find your work impact on the audience that have seen it, or following this imaginary nuclear plant that you have mentioned? What was the audience response?
It's a question for me, yeah?
Yes.
It was, I don't know, it was quite different. So for us, I don't know, for us, it was important, for example, in this piece that we don't concentrate on Chernobyl, because in our local, let's take Ukrainian situation, we have this huge Chernobyl tragedy, and we also get international support for it, and so on and so on. But we have also a lot of common ecological problems which are overshadowed by Chernobyl somehow. We also have trash, and we have a problem with rivers, and we have a huge areas which are under rules of huge corporations. They don't care about the people and about environment. So in our case was to somehow change also this Chernobyl optic to more maybe global issues. That's why we go not just to Chernobyl, but also to the rivers and to these quarry productions. And so maybe this was also for audience, some images or some stories from our project was also opening for somebody that also a huge ecological disaster outside the Chernobyl in Ukraine. So maybe that was something special.
I absolutely felt that also when you look at your work. It's not just about the impact of the nuclear power, but it's also awareness of an everyday commitment that we have to do with our natures as well. So this might lead also to the last part of our sessions today. We have some questions from our audience, whether if you have found, this is direct to Halim, whether you have found other DJs across your network to make changes to. And this tie in with my third questions. Do you think that other artists should start this movement? Should they start be aware of these societal, environmental problems and do something with their work? Or what do you think? So Halim, if you can start. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm actually very happy to start working with a DJ in America who's actually who's quite famous, named Blondish, and she has a initiative called the Green Rider. It's where you're asking artists and also the bookers, which is just as important, to include green initiatives in their riders. So this is something that I took a course also called the Greener Festival, which is how to create, of course, in the name, a greener festival, how to create festivals that have a lower environmental impact. And it starts with the people who are taking part in it. And the people who are taking part in it is the artist and the audience. Because the organizers, unless they are conscious of what they're doing, most time festival organizers are just going to continue going along their business and trying to do the best festival that they can do. You know, even though they might be doing like a conscious festival, but it might not necessarily be an eco-conscious festival, which is fine. You know, you don't know what you need to do until you need to do it. You know. So this is when the audience and the artists become very vocal and important about saying that their needs. And I'm pretty sure with most festivals, if you had an artist rock up that says, on my rider, I want zero plastic, I need all of my transportation to be carpooled, I don't need a private jet, you know, for rock stars, you know, like not for everybody rides in private jets, but you don't need to, you know. And if you include that in the rider, and then the people who are booking it will also make sure that happens. And of course, the audience is influenced by the artist. So if they see that the artist is talking about this, post about it on their social media, the audience are going to be, oh, that's so cool. My favorite blah 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 is including green initiatives. So I'm going to try and do that. And I mean, that's kind of how I was influenced also. I wasn't always someone who's into eco activism, and I had to be influenced, and I was influenced by people I looked up to saying it. And then that's how I started to do it as well.
That's amazing that you're, as you said at the beginning, that this position of a rock star, it's go beyond the stage, isn't it? I mean, it's go beyond the artwork that you do in the actual hours of performances, but it's also your everyday life and how you practice your speech, basically. And that's really wonderful. That, I mean, even as an artist, without performance, now we can still influence people by our everyday life. So thank you very much, Halim. And may I also ask Ilya as well, what do you think about this point? Should we all go out as an artist and make this statement or not? I'm afraid your mic's still off. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know. In our case, we don't have, I think, such a huge audience as a DJ. So we also have a DJ party at the end of the opera, but before this is a lot of, I don't know, trashy, noisy microtonal materials that can throw the audience away. But I think that, yeah, but even with a smaller audience, it's important to work. It's important to, I don't know, to share this. These thoughts about how you do this. And yeah, also we have a private jet, for example, but in our case in opera we have a production department, and I can say that in case of Chernobyl-Dorf, we did it ecologically because of our content. We really spent a lot of time on the flea markets, which I find really beautiful places. So I think that 95% of our costumes and requisite we're doing from second-hand markets and from flea markets. And this maybe was also our small contribution. Because if you go into the theater or to big theater production, you also are in the place where the people producing a lot of trash and producing a lot of costumes which are used for maybe 2-3 years, and then they throw it away or making trash of it. So.
Thank you. So it's you're really coming from the awareness of an artist himself or herself, that even in the productions. And I really like that you take all these objects and it's not only has the meaning in terms of ecological awareness, but also in terms of the meaning of those objects as well. So I think these two things fit beautifully together. So thank you very much. And just one more question for Ilya. Would you recommend the fellow composers to go out and pick topics like this around them and make it out loud for people? I mean, do you recommend a fellow composers to start doing all these things as well, to take some issues from around them and turn it into an artwork? Would you recommend them that?
Yes, of course, and special for me, the openness of the last year was really the flea markets, and for example, I don't know, the old instruments. You can really, I don't know, you can really find in every city a beautiful old piano that you can, I don't know, renovate it with $200-300 and then make a perfect instrument. You not necessarily must buy you know, always new gear and always overproduce. You also can find something in some beauty and even a history in all things that you can include to the concert set or to theater production. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now, if I can pass these questions to Akhu, do you have your fellow friends who's doing the same thing, or would you encourage other people to also do the same as an artist?
Especially in a place like my town, I think I would really want my fellow artists to be, expressive, and say things, because, we have been in this conflict for past many decades, and then we get immune, to all this. Unless we speak up, the fellow younger generations, they will also not do. So I think for artists, I think, of course, I mean, our art comes from our surrounding. I'm from this place, Manipur. I cannot sing about New York sitting here. I have to be, I have to breathe the ear, so I think I would really want, my fellow artists, but it's up to their choice. But I don't believe in art for art's sake. I believe in doing things for real, and I believe in making a statement. Life is too short to not say anything. I think people should be expressive and say whatever they want, and there's always a room to reconcile. To bring together and have a dialogue musically or in any form of art. So I believe in that.
Thank you very much. I think I'd also look up some quotes from Peter Seeger. He said something about like a good song makes you laugh, makes you cry, and makes you think. So I guess it's very right in your case that with all these people coming together and use our music also to help people to think. So possibly just before we dissolve today, can I ask quickly, so how's the situation now? And what do you see as a future in your work that you are doing in this limitations of COVID situation? Very quickly, or maybe giving hopes to our fellow artists here as well. Thank you.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
I used to work with children. I work with children who are, most of them, 70% of them are HIV positive, and I used to write very angry songs earlier, when I started out. But after working with the children, I have toned down a lot, and I started thinking, what if the children started singing these angry songs? They have gone enough. They have lost their parents, and so I think that side I have toned down a lot. But COVID, it's a disaster, and especially for artists like us. We earn money from our live shows and all, and from projects where I closely work with communities. So it's not been happening for, I don't know, since early last year. And so what I do now is like mostly, online shows and gigs and projects. So I still want to be hopeful. I hope it ends soon. And yeah, that's all I can say.
We all hope so, definitely. Halim and Ilya, if you would like to share something.
Yeah, sure. One of the big projects that I did during this time of COVID was help the out-of-work hospitality workers, because more than a DJ, I'm also an event organizer. And here in Bali, it was decimated because it's an island that runs very much on tourism coming in. And it was actually very interesting to see how much of the society kind of economically broke down. But on the positive side, I saw how much of traditional families came together, and how much of the strong Hinduism of Bali really made people come together. So I saw people sharing meals together, and people in the streets. If you had a bit more than everybody else, you were handing out food to those who needed it. So there was never any kind of breakdown in society beyond economics, which I think is really amazing. And I hope that we kind of take this forward as a society, because it really shows that we don't really need the money, but we need each other. So I think I'll end on that point.
Amazing. That's amazing. And you really reflected on Director Mackenzie at the beginning. It's about place that we all share and learn at this moment, isn't it? It hasn't happened before this, but this is a great time. Thank you, Halim. And Ilya, please.
Thank you everybody, and thank you for also for this small moment of togetherness. It's also important for us to be somehow together, and it's great that we have internet for that. And about pandemic, I think that I think we have a hope, because we can always look to the history. I don't know. My nation, for example, survived in 2 world wars, survived after Stalin politik, survived after biggest nuclear catastrophe in the world. And I think that everybody can also find in its own history, or we can find in world history, a huge catastrophe event that we survive, and humanity survive, and culture survive, and music. So I think we have a hope, and we have a lot of things that we must fight for, and we will do it. Yeah.
Certainly think so, especially after hearing 3 of you today. I felt that not only the music world, but the world has hope. So thank you very much again for sharing with us. And thanks our audience also to be a part of these wonderful discussions. So I'm hoping that this would be a chance for us to learn how to unbound not only ourselves, but also our audience through the listenings and all the music that will be surrounded us. Thank you very much for the Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival, Director Mackenzie, and the British Council. Thank you.